Well, we are live. Hello, Freeman.
Hello, my friend.
Welcome back. A second time, a two-peater. We've never had a two-peater on Small Talk yet, so welcome to this.
Wow.
So
the inaugural two-peater.
This is a two-peater. I want to welcome everyone back to Small Talk Live. Today we are going to talk about, I think, a feeling that a lot of people are familiar with. We sort of wake up in the morning, look at themselves in the mirror and realize that, it's a good life. They've built a nice life, but they sort of feel like they're on autopilot. Like it's the same thing over and over again, like Groundhog Day almost, or like, to use another 80s reference, same as it ever was, from David Byrne, Talking Heads. And
love it.
I don't love that default position, and I think a lot of us really want to get unstuck, right?
A rut.
We're on a
John
rut.
Small, we get caught in a rut.
We are caught in a rut, and it feels like this.
We've got morning radio sound effects.
I'm so excited I have my sound effects. So what are we doing here? So who is my guest? My guest today, if you do not recognize him, has been on the show before. His name is Freeman Michaels. He is a transformational leadership coach who helps people get unstuck and find their purpose again. And Freeman himself, and he'll tell you about this, has had a path of getting stuck and unstuck himself. He went from being a TV actor to a teacher to a real estate developer to a radio host to a leadership coach now. To a great storyteller. I mean, you have a lot of hyphens, right? And he calls this sort of midlife fog, this getting stuck, a circumstantial drift. He'll explain what he means by that. But we're going to talk today about what this means for a lot of Gen Xers and just generally people in general, and how to steer your life out of this place, get out of that rut. And so, Freeman, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me back. I'm so honored to be your first two-peater.
I think we are here. Let me just make sure that that people can see us. It says we're live, and it says we have 12 viewers. So hey, we must be live with 12 viewers. And a lot will come in as we continue. Before I do, I just want to do one technical thing here, Freeman, so I can look at the comments that people make, because I love watching the comments. Now it says Small Talk with Abby Gardner, which is already a total mistake. So we'll have to assume that. How do I change that? Let's change it. I do not like that.
So this is real time. This is real time iterating. We iterate in real time. That's our lives these days. This is a metaphor.
I know. Let's see. If you manage layouts, if you I don't know. How do we change that? Huh? You tell me. If there's anybody in the comments know how you change so it's not Small Talk Live with Abby Gardner, edit. Let's see here. I don't know.
This is such a good metaphor, John.
The metaphor of being stuck. And
no, but not stuck, just the iterating. So look, one of the things that I think we trip on, I'll say that I trip on, is this idea that I have to get it right the first time. This is very much our generation. We're the SAT generation. There's one right answer. And life is more of a creativity test where there's lots of right answers. And so figuring out which is the right answer right now is iterative. The first attempt may not be it. Well, you talked for a minute in introducing me about storytelling. And I wrote this one story and I, kind of put it up and it was okay. And I realized I like it, but it isn't there yet. So I brought it to this friend of mine who kind of coached me and helped me figure out some adjustments. Anyhow, I love it now. And I put it up last night at a showcase, and I haven't seen the tape yet, but when I see the videotape back, I think my wife said I'm going to really love it. But that's a big deal in my psyche, is that if I don't like it the first time, it's not good. And that's not true. It's just not there yet. And so then it took a few iterations, and that's everything in life. Like, I pick up my phone, something isn't working, I have to figure it out. But again, our generation, because we came up with this notion that you're supposed to learn something and you become an expert at it. And we always need an expert to tell us how to do things. And now, being an expert's a bad bargain. Have expertise, knowledge, and experience, but don't be the expert, because the solutions are emergent, right? So whatever we're doing now, we won't be doing it the same way, or we might not even be doing it tomorrow. Whole industries don't exist anymore because they're obsolete. So this idea of being able to keep reinventing ourselves and look at life more as a process is in my experience, it's a relief. So you haven't figured it out yet, John, but you'll figure it out.
You can tell that I'm struggling here, because I can tell that we're live, but when I try to watch it on my phone,
it says I'm Abby.
It says you're Abby, right? Are you
AKA Freeman Michaels, also known as Abby?
This is so frustrating. But okay, first of all, you're not Abby, and we're just going to have to deal with the fact that
we're going to have to deal with that. I don't know how Abby feels about it, but I've come to terms with it, John. I don't care if I'm not Abby.
You're just not Abby, and it's fine. And I'm going to do one other thing. You're gonna pause for 1 minute and not speak, because what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to. There we go. The monks. Okay. Can everyone hear it? Let me just say hello, everyone, to our wonderful people in our chat here. Welcome to live video, right? Yeah, we got. This is totally working. I mean, I got. If we have 17 viewers, and maybe I can't see it, but it doesn't matter. So Freeman, thank you for your patience with me as I
iterate.
So let's start. I
already started.
I know you
the way down the block.
You did. You laid down the gauntlet. But I was
riffing so that you can figure it out.
I know.
But I don't think what I was riffing about is not what we're talking about. I think what we're going to talk about today.
Okay, so we were talking about getting unstuck, and so
all right.
Let's just talk about why a lot of people our age feel kind of stuck in a rut right now. Like what is going on?
Well, I mean, so now I've already started this theme, is that a lot of us have the sense of where we're going is defined by this menu of choices, right? So the analogy is, it's kind of like you go to a Chinese restaurant and there is, menu option A and menu option B, and then you get to pick from the 4 soups or the 2 soups, the 1 entree, blah, blah, blah.
I always got the lo mein and the
okay. But part of this is the idea is that if we grow up in a family, let's say, where, my father's a doctor, my uncle's a doctor, I have another uncle that's a lawyer, and then I have a cousin who's a CPA. What are my options for career choices? I could be a doctor, a lawyer, or a CPA. I mean, maybe there's a little more variance, and there's a few other folks in my worldview that allow me to think, maybe I do that. But most of us have a small menu of options of what we can do in life. And the greatest jobs are jobs where we find ourselves in the job and we go, wow, this is kind of weird. How did I end up here? Mm-hmm. It's because, again, it's iterative. It's like we start off think we were doing one thing, and if we're lucky, it shifts and morphs and adjusts, and we find ourselves somewhere else. But I think our generation, again, I was joking, but I wasn't. The SAT one right answer mentality, we still have that. And so we don't have the ability to be more fluid, or we have to work on it. I mean, we have reinvented ourselves. A lot of us have. And I mean, that's the point you make, is we're way more resilient than people give us credit for. Mm-hmm. The only thing I think we have to get over is the idea that we ought to know. That's the piece. And like I said, that it's a process. The story, when I first put it up, wasn't that good. I could stop and say, that's not that good of a story. Or I could just keep playing with it. And now I love it. So there's something in that curve, that learning curve, to be more fluid, to see life more as a process, because the tyranny of that having to get it right mindset really costs us.
So we torture ourselves by, being sort of all being kind of perfectionists and wanting to get it right, and being like, I'm 53 years old. Why? And by the way, I'm not 53, but I like to pretend I am. I'm 53 years old. And why is my life, why am I stuck in this thing, this stupid job, and I don't have enough money? And, I'm definitely not gonna be able to retire in the next 10 years because, I don't have enough savings, and my parents are, needing my help, and my kids are needing my, just feeling completely overwhelmed. And we kind of keep doing the same thing over and over again to fix the situation, when actually that's the definition of insanity, right? So what can we do to kind of shake up this routine that I think a lot of, and this sort of like again, I said like a Groundhog Day kind of situation where it's like every day we want it to be different, but we wake up and it's like the same freaking thing over and over again. What would you recommend?
Stuck being stuck.
Yeah.
The mood that you're talking about is resignation, where, and I'll tell you what causes it is, for example, if someone is a chronic complainer, that generates a mood of resignation, which is sort of hopeless and overwhelmed and at the effect of, and that's a mindset issue. So when we talk about a complaint, what's the request? What do you want? That's we have to move to. So one of the processes, I think I used this with you before, that I use with my clients, is we do a journaling process, kind of a gripe session on the left-hand side of the page. The page looks like this, by the way. It's just a notebook. On the left-hand side, we gripe. On the right-hand side, we move to what we call the front of the boat, which is we solve. We say, okay, this is what I want. Okay, here's where I'm going. And it's the right-hand side of the page that liberates us. But if we don't have an active process like that, the habit of complaining, and especially if we collude with other people, in other words, we complain, we meet other complainers, we complain together, and now we're really stuck. We're stuck, they're stuck. And not just that, we've bonded over this. So it compounds it, you know? And then what happens often in life is something breaks down, and or someone leaves the group and says, I'm not doing that anymore. And they go on with their lives. That's the goal.
Yeah. So
we don't want to get stuck.
Yeah. So tell me about why you have people write their gripes down. So if you don't want to be a negative Nancy, by the way, I'm just going to keep pressing that button. You don't want to.
You gotta have another one though. What's another downer?
I have other ones like.
Oh, that's good. When we get it right, we can cheer.
Yeah, when we get it right, we'll do that. I've got a bunch. But if you don't want to be a negative Nancy, so if you don't want to be a complainer, why is it important to put your complaints down? Like, why is it important to write down your complaints on that left side of the page?
Because it's a default way of thinking. So what we say is identify, but don't identify with, right? So if you have stressful thoughts, identify the stressful thought, but don't identify with it. Don't make up a story as to why you feel that way. So there are these kind of habitual ways, like worry is a habitual pattern. And so you don't want to be a worrier. So don't identify with I'm a worrier. I worry. And so the ability to sort of write down my worries and then to kind of step back, look at them. They're mostly preposterous. I mean, they're mostly made up. They're extrapolations of what could go terribly wrong, but we're making it up because we know that very rarely does it actually play out like that. Almost never. So we're making craziness up. So there's a way of seeing that allows us then to shift to another way of being. So we've talked about this before. I call it dimensionalizing. So part of me feels overwhelmed and scared and da-da-da. Another part of me is optimistic and excited. And we want to go in the direction of our excitement, go in the direction of what we want to generate more of in our life. Because when we get caught in the complaining, we're actually arguing for our limitations. We're wanting to be right about what we call a small story. And that's how we get stuck in it. So stop doing that. And part of stopping doing that is acknowledging I do that, but I also do this. And then we can choose into what we want more of in our lives.
Right. All right. Well, I like that. So on the right side of the page, we're writing what we want to be doing more of.
Or we're reframing what we're freaked out about. In other words, it's kind of a self-counseling process. So if the part of me that's scared or overwhelmed or whatever, there's another part of me that can come in with a sort of observer and say, but I know it'll be okay. And this is also going on.
You're responding on the right side to your worries on the left side. So if you say, I don't have enough money, I'm worried that I don't have enough money, I'm so tired of not having enough money, what would your right side might say? What would you maybe write on the right side?
Well, it might be a whole bunch of things. The truth is there is enough in my bank account, and I have money coming in, and I am working on projects. So even though right now I'm not making a lot of money per se, I'm investing in a long-term, goal that I know will pay off. I don't know, whatever the right-hand side is going to say. It's a response to the part of us that's the sort of irrational, overwhelmed side of us that generates the mood we don't want to get stuck in. That's the rut we're talking about, right? And the other thing too, Look, I'm going to go back to the very beginning because I didn't start with it. Most people lack vision. I said this last time, I'll say it again. So most of us don't have enough, we haven't put enough energy into imagining possibility, into defining what it is we want, right? So one of the things, as you know, I have people do is look back at 10 peak experiences and define what was the quality in those experiences. What was the thing I was doing? What was the gift or talent? What were the people around me or the circumstances? And track what brings us excitement. What are we good at? And then the goal is to find expression for that. Not necessarily the exact same thing we were doing, but something similar too. So we're heading in the direction of something that we want, right? Because there's always this default setting, and the default setting is just the known. So our unconscious intention is always to maintain the status quo. A conscious intention, just where you put your energy and attention, is what we want to act out of. So we're putting our attention on what we want. And so I missed acting. I used to be an actor. I gave that up because there's all kinds of problems with the industry, and I don't really want to act anymore. But I love storytelling, and so I'm just so into it. I told a story last night. You would love it. And I'm going to tell a story tomorrow. I'm going to Lyric Hyperion. There's an open mic on Saturdays, and I'm going to tell a story, funny story. So, I mean, that's just fun for me. And so it's an outlet. But what's interesting is it really directly correlates to my job too. But it doesn't have to, but it does. So there's this way, if we go in the direction of what we love, it'll naturally find form in ways that we can't always expect. It's just like, whoa, who knew that would happen? But that's the game, right?
Yeah.
Because ultimately we want to do work that's meaningful, that's what we love. I think a lot of us are burdened with a belief that work has to be hard, right? And that there's some nobleness in suffering. So that's a bad idea. Don't do that. Work has to be great and fun, and not all the time. I do my billings on Fridays. I hate invoices, so I've got to stop and we call it conscious compartmentalizing. I give myself an hour of time to do my invoices, each week, and then I'm done with it. So I put the part of my job I don't necessarily love into a place in my calendar. If I don't do that, then I'm obsessing about it and thinking about it and worrying about it, not wanting to do it, versus just stick it somewhere. And then that frees me up energetically to enjoy the rest of my time doing the things I do love doing. I hit you with three concepts at one time.
No, I love it. I love it. And I have to sort of figure out where I want to take this. So look, I think where we don't have a vision, the people perish, right? I know it's from the Bible or something like that, but it is so important that we kind of know where we want, what we want, the changes that we want to make. And I think that they get kind of stuck in our head. I think what happens with me is I have a lot of ideas of things that I kind of changes I want to make in my career, et cetera, and in my life. But until you actually have the act of writing it down on a piece of paper, it's going to stay in your head. So I think that practice is very important to kind of actually, and it is very Gen X-y, by the way, to write something down. I would even maybe encourage you to write it down with a pen and paper, maybe even in a blue book. No, maybe not in a blue book, but you know what I mean? Write it down.
I'm using one, a composite book. This is my kids buy
composition book, one of those marble. Yeah. I used to have one of those.
Old school. I use them all the time. I buy them at the dollar store. They're $1.25.
I know, they're really awesome. I have
one. The dollar store is not $1 anymore, by the way. It's $1.25 now.
Yeah, the 99-cent stores. I was looking for my book. So the process
writing
it down is very, very important. And then once you do that, what do you do? So once you have those down there and you kind of have these ideas, how do you take it out of the realm of getting it, it's on the piece of paper locked there into, maybe into expression, like you say, or into practice?
Tell someone.
Yeah.
So here's the thing. And these are statistics. I'm going to throw off the statistic because it's not sitting in front of me, but there's something like this. Wait, let me go to the principle first. Intention without action is called delusion. So if you intend to do something, you're going to have to take action. And the bridge is commitment. So what happens is, let's say I have this idea of something I want to do. And I go from thinking about it to writing it down. Oh, that's good. And then I share it with someone. If I say to someone, I'm going to do this thing, my chance of success go up to 60%. I think it's 60%. Now, if I actually ask that person to support me in some way, we call it support accountability. So if I enroll that person in supporting me, then my chances of actually doing the thing I want to do go up to over 90%.
Wow.
So there's something about accountability. So I have a Tuesday evening accountability group. We started it last year when we did the visions. So I peeled off 3 or 4 people and we would meet actually it was Mondays and then it switched to Tuesdays. It may have to go back to Mondays now because I have a Tuesday thing. But anyhow,
very important for people to know. He might have to go back to Mondays, by the way.
Yeah, it's important. Well, no, what I'm talking about though is interesting. It's the flexibility of this. So enroll someone in being a support accountability buddy. It's like when you used to go to the gym by yourself and you're like, yeah, I don't go to the gym. But if you schedule to meet someone there and you work out together, ta-da, right. Your chance to success go exponentially.
The accountability thing, I think that sounds so, great. But I think a lot of people our age and just in are kind of almost embarrassed to ask their friends. And then they put this all burden on their partner, their spouse or whatever, their partner. Do you recommend it being your spouse or partner, or should it be like more of a professional relationship, that accountability person?
It would depend. If it's something directly related to my partner and we make an agreement and commit to it and put it on the calendar, heck yeah. But if it's not related to my partner, then no. Yeah, you would have it in various areas of your life. Look, one of the easiest ways to do this is, so I was at this storytelling showcase last night and it came out of a class that the folks took. I wasn't in the class, but I joined the showcase. But the class meant that they had to go every Monday or Tuesday night. It was Monday nights. And then at the end, they had to tell a story after 6 weeks. And they got up there. And a lot of them, they're not going to do that on their own. I'm just telling you straight up. So there's your accountability. And it was great. They were all hugging it out. They're like friends forever. And it was meaningful. And that's a great idea. So the reason I'm switching from Tuesday to Monday is I'm taking a stand-up class. I have no desire to be a stand-up comedian, but I recognize the value of being funnier. So I tell stories. So I'm like, I'm going to work on the humor side. So I will certainly be up there doing a stand-up set. I have no idea how on, I can't remember the date, it's like December 16th or something at the Crow. But the bottom line is this, that I set myself up where I'm going to have to do this. So maybe it's an accountability person. Maybe it's a class. I don't know. Or you hire a coach. I mean, the problem with coaches is coaches are expensive. But if you can afford it, or you and I talked about this, we might start a group. That way a bunch of people can participate. I joined this group.
So we've got this accountability idea here, and we've got this group of people that are watching this, that read my Substack, that are interested in these issues. I mean, show of hands in the comments. Nobody comments, but we'll see if they can comment. How many people would be interested in doing an accountability group where, you basically show up and just say, hey, and this is what I intend to do this month. And, then you gotta be accountable. You show up at our group and we see how far you've gone. I mean,
I'd structure it a little bit more, John. I'd work with them to, yeah, I'd create a vision. So everyone has a vision. Then we talk about some practical things they can do to express the things that are in the vision. So a vision isn't a strategic plan. It's not an end goal. We have goals in our lives, but goals are always expressions of limitation because they're what we can see from where we're presently standing. What I said previously is true. The best job is the job we're like, wow, who knew I'd be doing this? So we do want to iterate and wander into opportunities, right? But not wander in with ideas, some ideas.
Really interesting, that idea of goals being, because I think everybody thinks you have to have goals, right? Like we're taught.
Well, you do. You got to point. You got to head in the direction of something.
But you said goals are kind of a point of limitation. So what do you mean by that?
Well, they're inherently limited because it's what you can see from where you're presently standing. When you start on a path and you start to do it, all of a sudden things begin to open up you couldn't see when you started. Yeah. Right. And also opportunities find you. You're showing up in a certain way, doing something. And then someone says, hey, I have this thing. And you go, oh, wow, that'd be great. Next thing you know, it's like, I didn't expect to be doing this. But it's a direct reflection of the first step you took. So you take a step in the direction of where you think you're going. And I can almost promise you, if you get it right, you won't go there. You'll go left or right of it, or you'll go beyond it. You'll blow it open. But we do need the goal. Because we do have to have something to focus on. But then this isn't willy-nilly.
Yeah, no, but this is such a good point because I have found in my experience, and I wrote this book called Right About Now, which was based on my podcast, which was where I interviewed 150 different, actually interviewed like 400 different writers, famous writers a lot of times, and asked them why, tell me about your origin story. How did you become successful? And one thing that I found is that they all made this commitment to write. Like that was the one common thing, but none of them it never happened the way they thought. Their careers never unfolded the way that they thought they were going to go. And I think that's
exactly.
Everybody thinks they know how it's going to go just based on their past experience. They set a goal and they're like, well, this is how it's going to go. I'm going to get an agent, and then but no, like what ends up happening is you set this goal to write, and then this crazy thing happens. Life takes over, and it goes in a way that you never saw happening. And then, you either have tremendous success or maybe you even have some failure. But it is really interesting that I think a lot of times we stop doing things that we want to do because we think we know how it's going to end up, when actually, we have absolutely no idea how it's.
And that's the best. We want to be surprised.
It's a little scary because nobody likes ambiguity. Look, I'm an anxious guy. From New York. I don't like not knowing how things are going to turn out if I'm going to commit a lot of time. Like, look at this small talk thing that I just endeavored into. Like,
okay, so let's do the work right now.
4 months ago, I started this thing called Small Talk, right?
Yeah.
Okay, here we go.
So two things are true simultaneously. Left-hand side of the page, I'm anxious. Right. I wouldn't identify as anxious. I would say part of me feels anxious. Again, that's a distinction because I don't want to identify, but don't identify with. Yeah, you're running a certain amount of anxiety. Some of it's baked in. It's personality, whatever. You grew up in a certain way. Fine. So part of you is anxious. On the right-hand side, you're hyper creative. You're one of the smartest dudes I know. You are. And you take risks. Oh my God. You love to say I'm risk adverse. And that the next thing you're doing, I'm like, really? Are you doing that? Because
I do a lot of things that, yes, I try. And I think you're like that too, which is probably why we gravitate towards each other. You like to throw a lot of things up at the wall. I think part of that is, as I've gotten older, I've gotten less scared of failing. I think I wish I did all this stuff in my 20s because I feel like I was so scared of failing in my 20s and so concerned with what other people thought about me that I didn't attempt to do a lot of things that I'm doing now. Like if you would have told me like, hey, just start some random podcast, Substack Live, and put it out there and just like expect people to show up and, and read your stuff. And I would have been like, no, I don't have enough to say on it, and I just would have been like, what about if it's embarrassing? I just would have had so many excuses not to do it. So yes, thank you for that vote of confidence. But I think what happens with me is that I try a lot of stuff. I sometimes almost have too many ideas. And I think other people can maybe relate to this, where it's like I have a little bit too much going on, and then understanding like what should be my priority, like what should I focus on. And so if you have a lot of ideas and you're trying a lot of different stuff, is there a method that you use to kind of say, hey, this is the thing that I'm going to spend a little bit more time on and grow, as opposed to, what do you do?
So a couple things. Let's go back to the group, for example.
Yeah.
So you're in a group and the group is supporting you and you're trying on various things. Now, hopefully there's a little bit of guidance. That's why I do like someone to be facilitating, like a coach or something, because it helps, right? That there's just someone who's sort of overseeing the process to keep everyone on track. But ultimately, the thing that actually takes root is the thing that we're excited most about. And we kind of stick with a little longer because we really, really want it. Again, the trick is not to define it by outcome, because that is a trip cord, but to define it by the quality of experience we associate with the thing we're calling the outcome, so we can find expression of that now. So it isn't about the outcome. It's about how do we find expression now? And going back a step, the idea it's a process. Okay, the story, it wasn't great the first time I put it up, but I really liked the story and I thought it could be good. Okay, I kept working on it just because it wasn't there yet. But again, we're the SAT generation. We think there's a right answer. There's not. And we keep looking for examples.
We're such an SAT generation. Although somebody here is an ACT generation. They just
that's true too. All right, see.
But I know what you mean. It's like we always want to get it right. I don't know if that's something that we got from our parents, or it was a cultural thing. But I think Gen Xers like to get it right. I don't know if we're unique in that way, but I do know that of a lot of my friends and peers have been taught that getting it right is the way to go. And it seems like there is more to it. It's the quality of your experience. It's screwing up. It's failing miserably.
Yes.
Failing forward. And we're so scared to fail. And the stakes seem higher as you get older, because like, if you fail, you're not a kid anymore. Like you gotta put food on the kids' table. You gotta pay for college. You gotta do all this stuff. I mean, I look outside. All the stuff I got to do out there. And so, it can be a little scary. Like you sort of like, I think the way a lot of us talk ourselves out of making changes or getting out of ruts is that like, I'm too old for this shit kind of stuff. Right.
Yeah.
I can't play around now. I have to get serious about my life or whatever it is. And I think that's probably a trap, a mind trick that we play on ourselves. And even if it's small things, like starting a small thing, like every morning I'm going to write like a half an hour in the morning. I'm just going to do that.
One step forward is everything. Because again, it's resignation. If we let the voice in our head get too loud, we lose our momentum. So we have to interrupt that pattern of complaining, of what ifing, and that's why every writer says, I made a practice of writing. I wrote every day. Didn't know where it was going. Behind me, the guy who wrote the Story Brand thing, what's his name? I don't know. But he started off writing memoirs, and then he blew up and has this bestseller. It wasn't what he thought he was going to do, but he did his 10,000 hours, to use the Malcolm Gladwell thing, in a certain arena. And then it transferred over here and blew up. Oh, who knew? So, but go back to this point, because we started with the circumstantial drift. The circumstantial drift occurs when we let the voice in our head and the demands, which are real, I don't want to diminish those, overwhelm us. So we take our eye off the prize. We stop paying attention to what we want, and we kind of settle. And we settle into a rut. And that can be in our marriage. It can be in our job. It can be in our social life. It can be in our weight and physical health. And like, we've all done it. But the key to that is that's mostly mindset. It's the story that we can't. Like, whether you think you can or you can't think you can or can't, you're right. So we just want to watch that mindset. So find things that we can point to and make a choice in the direction of what it is we want. And it can be little. You said half hour a day, plenty. Look, take my advice. I'm not using it. There's a lot of things that I say that I do this. I do everything I'm saying, but not with the rigor I'd like to. This morning, the chair yoga in the morning is so good. John, it's so good. Yoga. It's 15 minutes long.
Do you just sitting? How do you do that? That seems like an oxymoron, chair yoga.
Yeah. So it's just a series of stretches, essentially, and breathing that this lady guides us through on YouTube. And it's 17 minutes long, but I clipped it so it's only 15 because we only have 15 minutes in the morning. Every time we do it, my wife and I, that's such a great way to start the day. Oh my God, my back feels better.
Oh, that's cool.
And so just the discipline of doing it. Now, here's the thing about committing to something that you don't do in a ritualized way. You have to keep recommitting. So I haven't totally infused this into my daily routine yet, but I'm committed to doing that. And I keep dropping it and picking it up. So eventually I'll get there. I've been meditating for 17 years. That's a commitment I keep. I walk every day. That's a commitment I keep. There are certain things baked into my life that I don't have to think about anymore. They're in. Chair yoga hasn't made it in yet, but I want it to. So I just keep recommitting. And what I know from that is over time, eventually it does stick.
Yeah. You try different things and you see what's going to stick. And I sort of, without even realizing it, like suddenly this kind of like mid-afternoon walk has like come into, I think it started with COVID for me. And then now it's kind of just become like a routine that is important to me for my mental health. I think it's just taking this walk. And now I found out that if I take a walk, listen to this, Gen Xers. Do you know about zone two workouts? So no. Zone 2 is where you have your heart rate at a certain clip. Like it's like a bit like you can still talk comfortably, but you're a little bit winded. If you can do like a 45-minute zone 2 workout a day, it is like unbelievably advantageous to your health. And I only know this through Peter Attia, who has written lots of books about longevity, and he's like sort of a guru of longevity. Someday I'm going to write a story about an experience I had recently where I went to a longevity clinic and had 9 hours of tests done on my body, my heart, my brain, and got all these tips on what to do. I did this by the way, this is a $15,000 test that I did for a story. So thankfully I didn't have to pay for it, but I want to talk about it with you guys because it was really interesting what I found out about health and wellness and nutrition and stuff for people our age. But I digress. The point of this was that the walk has become really important to me as kind of a routine that kind of clears the brain. that kind of gets me out of this kind of doom scrolling freak out. It's sometimes I'll have a podcast on, but I actually find that sometimes it's better to just not have any sound and to just be like one with nature in a way and just be observing what's around me. And I don't know about you, but when I take walks, I'm able to solve a lot of problems. Like, I don't, does anybody have hearts for this? Like, has anybody ever noticed that when they take a walk, they and start thinking about stuff that maybe they were, you know, like a story idea or whatever it is, a problem that you're having with your spouse or whatever, like a lot of solutions come in the process of when I'm walking.
Take it for a walk. Take the problem for a walk. Take it for, especially in nature.
Yeah.
That's a super, everything you said is germane. So there's a couple things. One is your investigation of longevity as a goal. Like, I don't, you know, watching my aging father, I'm looking at choices he made 20 years ago and went, wow, I don't want to end up this way. So there's a clarity in what I do want, right? Which might start with what I don't want. That's okay. And then some investigation and awareness. So now you have awareness and you can actually set some goals and like, okay, so I'm going to go into this zone 2 thing that I figured out. That's cool. Look, I figured out a way to do it. Look, it fits in my life. Hey, it also is a good way for me to get the stress out and think through some stuff that's haunting my brain. Great. So anytime you can couple things where it's like, so on my walk every day, I talk to my father. When my mother passed, I made a commitment to talk to my dad every day. So I do it on my walk. There's a ritual. So I've baked things into my life so that I get to, you know, couple them. So that's a great strategy to be successful.
So let's say you start a new initiative, like a ritual or something, or something that you wanted to do. It was on your goal sheet, you know, and again, you do what we're talking about. You actually like make small steps towards achieving that goal without trying to figure out what the outcome is going to be before you get to the outcome, because you don't really know once you have a goal where it's going to lead, right? It might not lead to the thing that you thought it was going to lead to, which is the best part. It's the best part of having goals, I think, is the excitement. That's living to me, where it's like, you know, but anyway, sometimes I'll start a project. Like, let's say I want to write a book and I start writing the book and I'm not really, but then I start other projects, et cetera, because with other goals. And then I don't know when do you know to give up on a certain, like, you don't have to pursue every initiative or goal that you initially thought of. Like, at what point do you know, like, maybe it's time, like, this is not really going to work out. Like, it's okay. Cause I think a lot of times we beat ourselves up because we started something and we don't finish it. And
yeah, but it's not,
I've started 30 books and haven't finished them.
It's the form, not the creative inertia, the creative impulse. So the creative impulse to write a book, the format book isn't working out, but the impulse is great. And so the book may not be the expression. So then you write something else. I'm writing an article. I mean, how many times
do you know the book's not the expression just because you don't want to?
Well, we don't know yet, but what we might do is find that it's really labor intensive and that it's not really working out, and I don't have the discipline. And so I can say, wow, that's not the form it's taking. Let's find a form that's easier. Let's write an article. Whoa, I wrote an article. Wait, I wrote 10 articles. Wait, I've written 20 articles. Guess what? That's a book. Hey, wait, that's a book. So, you know, writing a 200 or 300 page book is ominous. We've bit off this huge chunk. Take bite-sized pieces of that. Find expression in smaller ways and then let it find form. It may never be a book, by the way. Who knows? It might be a podcast. Who knows? It might be a keynote speech or a TED talk. I don't know. But you do it in the bite-sized way, and then you find your way into the expression. So a lot of times when we aim for something, again, we're putting a lot of energy into an outcome, and it just isn't the right expression. But what are the raw materials? And then the other thing you've said is, how do we find simple practices, ways to be in the energy of the thing we're doing in a simpler way that's repeatable over time? I can almost guarantee that will find some positive expression or form in your life.
Right.
If it's a creative outlet and you're doing it in incremental ways and you like it and it's catching steam and you're into it, follow that.
Yeah, I like the idea of doing things in small incremental ways, because I think we get overwhelmed where it's like, we're like, I need to completely reinvent myself, or, you know, like this happened to me a few years ago when I lost my job. I got laid off, and I was like, you know, it was so overwhelming, the idea that I had to start, you know, find a new job and do all this stuff. And it was it was almost like it paralyzed me in the beginning, because it was just the idea of like having to reinvent myself, especially when I realized that like it would be hard to recreate the job that I've been laid off from, because I was getting older. People weren't
You
hiring.
didn't like the job either, John.
I didn't really like it that much.
They broke up with you before you broke up with them.
I didn't really like it that much. So in a way, it was more a panic of life stuff, not like, oh my God, I just lost my dream job. And I'm sure that happens to some people. That wasn't the case in my case. But the point being that when I kind of stepped back and started little things like, just little projects and, a few different calls that I made and kind of did little things, not like got a new career, or got a new full-time job, but just like, started doing some podcasting, production for some people that I knew, started writing articles for some people that I knew, started teaching classes in writing, started DJing. I DJ now and make money to do it, something I haven't been paid to do since I've been 22 years old. So that's kind of crazy. And all these new things started coming, but they were slow, and they've been slow. And this is why I say that, like, I feel like Generation X has to kind of think of their lives more as like entrepreneurial, like, right? Like, I think at a certain point, we weren't really raised necessarily to be entrepreneurs. Like, that wasn't really like a big deal when we were coming up, like, oh, be an entrepreneur. I mean, maybe some people were, but it wasn't like
there was a small menu of options.
There was a small menu of options. Yeah. I think that the sort of secret now is to think of your life a little bit more entrepreneurial, especially if you're, looking for a job now. And to sort of, and again, I don't know, maybe I'm making too many points at once here, but it's something that I have come to, is that there is that entrepreneurial spirit is not just like, I'm an entrepreneur. Like, it's like an entrepreneur means that you are working for yourself, making things happen for yourself. So you're not relying on somebody else to tell you what to do and give you. And sometimes that requires a lot of little things that will then maybe add up to one big thing. I don't know. But that to me seems to be a shift in mindset that we need to make when we're at this age in our life and sort of finding ourselves, not able to do some of the things that we could do when we were much younger.
More hyphens.
Yeah, more hyphens.
We need more hyphens. Ageism. It's a drag when you get on a plane and someone says, "What do you do?" and you're supposed to answer in like, or at a cocktail party, you're supposed to answer in like 1 minute. So
I hate that. I don't know what to say. It was so easy when I was 30. I'd be like, I'm an editor at this magazine, and now it's like, do you have 45 minutes? I mean, it must make people really bored. I just had my first job interview in a long time 2 days ago, and the guy was like, "So what are you up to these days?" And it was like, oh my God. I need to figure out a good elevator pitch for that question.
We do. We need a little quick statement for you so you can define what you're up to.
Other people going through that, where it's like, when people ask you what you do, like, it's impossible now to say, just one thing. Like, it is. Yeah. All right. Do you think this is unique for us? Like, are we as Gen X in a unique place here, or does every generation, you think, go through this when they get?
Well, the world changed. So the generation that we came up in, there were guidelines because the world wasn't changing so fast, right? So it made sense. So in business terms, I say, best practices. Best practices are still important, but next practices are more important. So if we're not evolving and iterating and changing, we're dying. We're not relevant. And that's true of companies. It's also true individually. So there is, again, this thing where we get stuck in a rut, the circumstantial drift, the overwhelmed by all these things like the bills, the kids, the this, the that, and we lose sight of where we are in our lives. A lot of people, before they get laid off, I work with them on reinventing themselves inside of the lives they're currently in, inside of the job they're currently in. Before they leave their spouse, reinvent yourself inside of the marriage you're actually in. And that's a big deal. My wife went through this. She was thinking, I need to change careers. And twice now, she's done a major reinvention of who she is inside of the job she's had for over 20 years. And it's so powerful. The last one was more of a service orientation. So she has 1 day a week that's slower. And that day she really focused on connecting with her patients. She does ultrasound, pregnant women. And that's her jam. And she loves that day because that's the day she chooses to have that piece of her life. And then she got into, echocardio, the 4-chamber heart view of I don't know. She's a smarty. Smarty pants. So
Okay,
she loves learning. So she's gotten really into taking these classes online, and now she's catching these things that she isn't. And the crazy thing is, she's not actually getting paid more for this. It's just she wants to grow her knowledge and experience. She wants to be better at what she does. And there's been a couple of really amazing opportunities for her to show that she's got these skills recently, and it's so rewarding for her. So this is a mindset thing.
Yeah, it's great. It's a mindset thing, and it's not have to be this huge thing where I have to make a huge life change. It's just like, even in your daily life, if you're doing something, just try to do it a little bit differently.
Complaint to request.
Yeah.
Complaint to choice, right? As opposed to getting stuck in this story of why it's not working or why you don't like it. It's the simplest question. What do you want? What do you want? What do you want? And on the right-hand side of the page, we say what we want. All the wisdom exists on the right-hand side of the page, but we don't get the left-hand side of the page out enough.
You think we know do we always know what we want?
No, but we know enough.
Right.
Look, I think every person has a destiny that wants to be fulfilled, right? Mm-hmm. There's a little inventory I have people do. You write down your 10 peak experiences. You also write down 3 to 5 situations that didn't work out. So you assess what doesn't work too. It's not just like, oh, I know what I like, I'm going in the direction of that. Sure, against the backdrop of things that didn't work, because I don't want to find myself in situations like that. There are jobs I don't want. I told a client recently, I said, look, I don't want you to hire me if I'm not the right person, because the last thing I need in my life right now is a difficult, situation. I don't want that. So I really want to have clients who want me to be their coach. Otherwise, I am so not interested. And that's a hard thing to say, because the sort of, the survival side of us is like, oh, take the jobs and you can get them. Not if I can't create value. Yeah. So that's my orientation, is where can I create value? What's the best and greatest expression of my gifts and talents? How do I keep growing that on the right-hand side against the backdrop of the left-hand side, what we call the back of the boat, which is all of my fears and the concerns and da-da-da-da-da. They're both going.
Do you think it sometimes helps to ask other people like where you create value? Because I
feel
like sometimes it's hard to kind of judge yourself, or sometimes people might have ideas, like they might say like, well, you're really good at this thing. And you're like, I am, and I think sometimes it might, and not just your spouse who, you probably had this conversation with, but like friends, or maybe coworkers, and say like, what did you, I'm looking to make a change now. Like, what do you think, in your experience working with me, what did you think that I was, the kind of where I excelled? Or I don't know, what would be the best way to frame that question, but
choose wisely.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like I go do this thing at Lyric Hyperion. I tell my story. I don't want everyone's feedback.
Yeah.
I select people whose feedback I want. So Jack Canfield, who of course wrote the Chicken Soup for the Soul series with Mark Victor Hansen, and he wrote Success Principles, yada, yada, yada. One of the success principles is make a conscious effort to surround yourself with positive, nourishing, uplifting people who believe in you, encourage you to go after your dreams, and applaud your victories. So in order to succeed, you have to have a team of supporters. And I think we have to be really careful not to let people into our circle who are not cheering for us.
Yep.
Negative. Right. So pick your people carefully. I have someone I do the storytelling. So once a week, my friend, Sabrina, we meet once a week. She's so good. God, she's good. And I hired a coach too. I'm a coach. I get the value of a coach to guide me in the process. So those are the two things I'm doing because I love it and I see tremendous value.
That's your support system, and that's your choir, or not?
That's it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Who do you want to align yourself with? That's important.
Yeah.
Because you don't want advice from fools. That just takes you off track. So don't do that. Pick really smart people who you feel their advice is good and that they're cheering for you, and that's who you should draw.
And if you have to pay for it, you have to pay for it. But sometimes you don't, and sometimes you might have friends. But you're like you said, choose wisely.
It's good to pay for it sometimes. I get a lot of value out of paying for it because I do my homework. If it's just a friend, I may or may not write the story, but
it makes you accountable. Right.
Oh man, I got to get you ready for this. I mean,
there's a reason we go to school. We had to go to school, right? Because
that's right.
We had to take tests and we had to be accountable for. Yeah. There's probably some value in.
That's why I say take a class. That last night, all those people that were in that class, they showed up. They had a story. It was good. They worked hard on it. right?
You know,
And they
my
move.
friends used to make fun of me all the time. I used to have a friend that used to make fun of me all the time he's like, you always take classes. You're taking classes all the time. And, you know,
I love taking classes.
I know. I'm glad. I think we definitely see eye to eye on that. And I think, you know, I think sometimes there's a stigma, I think, attached. Like, I don't need to take a class for that. You know, it's like, but it's funny. Like, I took a how to be better at social media class once. And, you know, it was a very practical class about, I thought that I was not good at social media. Like I would wanted to figure out how to, and I saw all the kids being good at it and I wanted to know how to be better at it. But what's interesting about that is it ended up being a class that taught me that I loved podcasting. It was completely not, this is the sort of theme of this conversation. It was completely not the reason that I took the class. I took the class because I wanted to be better at social media. I wanted to learn how to like be an influencer or whatever, or like, you know, do better posts about my articles or whatever. But what ended up happening is the final assignment was to do like one project that would promote your business. And that my business at the time was ghostwriting. So I said, okay, what's the one project I'm going to do? I'm going to start a podcast about writing or about ghostwriting. And I started this podcast. Now, I don't remember one thing I learned in that social media class, to be honest with you, but I can tell you that I have been podcasting ever since, and it's been a complete life changer for me. So
I love that.
Yeah.
That's a great story, John.
It's interesting.
Because learners learn. So if you go in with the desire to learn something, you'll learn something, you know? So I can't tell how many times I thought I was doing one thing. And then next thing I know, I'm like, oh, that wasn't about that. I'm over here. Yeah. But it's your attitude going in.
So here's what I want everybody to do listening. Like, let's try this week. What should everybody do listening? Just try this week, right? Just to
I would do the right-hand side, left-hand side of the page. Two things. One is
for those who are just joining, that is on the right-hand side, you write all the things that you tell them. Your
left-hand side, you write all your sort of complaints, gripes, fears, concerns. On the right-hand side, you self-counsel. You tell yourself, you use the wisdom part of your brain to advise the party that's freaking out and let them know everything's going to be okay. And then point in the direction of what it is you do want.
And then should you act on some of those moments of wisdom?
Yeah. Again, if I'm taking people through a process.
Yeah. I'm like short circuiting your process.
Yeah. There's a little bit to how we come to the visioning process.
Well, we'll get to the visioning next time.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
But I like that. Okay. So everybody's going to do the left hand, right hand, and then you're going to tell me how that went. And then I don't know how you're going to tell me how that went, but damn it, you're going to tell me how that went. Tell me how that went in the comments.
In the comments. This is going to go once this is live now, but it won't be live in a minute. It'll just be sitting up there. People can go back to it a week from now and write in the comments. I did the right hand, left hand side. This is what I got from it. The thing you're going to get from it is this, that the voice in your head that pulls you out of the game where you get stuck in a rut is loud. If you can get it on paper and sort of, debunk it and get to the right-hand side, that's where you want to operate in your life. You're operating out of choice. The left-hand side, if you don't do anything about it, you'll default to patterns that aren't helpful. You and everyone I know, and that's how you get stuck in a rut. We call it the circumstantial drift. All the excuses, all the stories, all the reasons will all coagulate on the left-hand side and drag you down. The right-hand side is where you want to choose out of. That's the information you want to take forward and move into choice. And then I recommend you start to envision, and then I recommend you tell someone what you're up to and you make commitments, and then we start to move into a totally different way that we're operating in choice and we're seeing our lives get better in whatever area of your life you're focusing on, because energy follows attention, right? So you become deliberate, intentional, start making commitments, tell people about it, draw people into supporting you, take a class, it'll move the needle. Guaranteed.
You know, I love this idea of with the voices in your head being very loud, and constantly having a conversation with that voice in your head, which is crazy. The first time I ever became really aware of that voice in my head, like where it was like, wow, that voice never shuts up, is when I read this book called Living Untethered by Michael A. Singer. I don't know if anybody has read this book, but I totally recommend this book. I'm not like a spiritual whatever, I don't kind of go that way a lot, but this book is a real game changer. Living Untethered by Michael A. Singer. I should have him on the thing, because he talks about this voice that is and how you have to talk to this voice and how you have to listen to this voice, and just know that voice is always going to be there, and it's always going to be telling you. It's like he says, like, imagine it's like this really annoying roommate that's just constantly talking at you. And it's important, I think, that we kind of like put a little title on that voice sometimes and like tell it to chill out, because it's been telling us a story our entire lives, and it's nice sometimes to talk back to.
So can I offer, look, the work by Byron Katie, it's a little woo-woo, but here's what I like about it. There are 4 questions, and it's all about examining your stressful thoughts. The first one, is it true? So you have a stressful thought. This is left-hand side of the page, right-hand side. Is it true? Can you absolutely know it's true is the second question. The third is, how do you react when you believe that thought? And the fourth is, who would you be without that thought? And then there's this idea of the turnaround, where whatever the statement is of the stressful thought, you say the exact opposite as a statement. And more often than not, the exact opposite, the turnaround, is equal to multiple stories. Both stories are true. Great. Then the question is, which one serves you? So the stressful thought and the turnaround are both true. Great. Which one serves you? That's an analogy for left-hand side, right-hand side. It's a little bit more of a discipline thing. My only problem with it is it becomes a little bit of a head trip. You don't necessarily need to go through all of that. And there's a step you get to where you can actually begin to let the stressful thoughts float through your awareness without attaching a story or anything to them. That's more contemplative. And there's something called 3 principles, which I think is an interesting, again, it gets a little woo-woo, but the idea of just getting really practiced at watching stressful thoughts float through your awareness without doing anything about them, and noticing how they drift away.
Yeah.
Right? How they really aren't true, and they just are floating by. Let them float by. Don't make up a story about why you're stressed or da-da-da-da-da. Worry. If you let it pass, you forget to be worried and your life goes right on. And what happened to the worry? Well, it went back to the nothingness it came from. For me, shame is the big one. I might have said that before. I have these little, like, these flashes of shame in my life. I don't even know what that's about. But if I...
Shame. Yeah.
Yeah, truly, it is. It's the nuns. No. I blame everything on the nuns.
All right. So we've talked about a lot here, and I want to be mindful of your time. But let's see if anybody in the comments has any questions for Freeman or for me. People will feel a little less stuck after listening to this conversation, and we're giving you practical advice too, of like things you can do to get a little bit less stuck, because Lord knows we are stuck. I think we all are, and we're not the only generation that's stuck, but sometimes it feels like Gen X needs Gen X slacks. Oh, thank you.
That's good. That's good. I like it.
Yeah, because we're stuck. But okay, so his name is Freeman Michaels. Okay, Gabrielle is asking what prompted us to have this discussion. That's
well, you and I kind of have these discussions all the time anyhow.
Yeah, we do.
Yeah,
we're having it, and we're like, we should talk about this with like people, listening on. I think we have this discussion because we're talking honestly about the things that we're thinking about. And I think a lot of things that we end up thinking about, one of the things that I've noticed is a lot of things, I'm not that original. I'd like to think I'm super original. My anxiety and worries are really super original. Like it's just me. No, like a lot of people have exactly the same struggles and worries that I do. And I'm actually surprised as how many people, and that's why one of the kind of things I've noticed in writing small talk and talking a lot to Gen X is how many of us kind of are going through a lot of the same stuff. And so I think this is something that I think a lot of people think of, like feel kind of stuck in their way, want to kind of reinvent, want to shake things up in their lives. And so I wanted to kind of bring it up.
Can I say something even stronger? It is my firm belief, and I think you're with me, if we're not reinventing ourselves in this moment in time in our lives, we're becoming irrelevant or less relevant. And so relevance is the thing. The world is changing really fast. So it's not like we have to keep up, but I do think we have to stay engaged. And it's really easy to check out. And we all know that any time in our lives we checked out, it didn't work out well, whether it was in our health and well-being, our relationship, our job, whatever. So staying engaged and being the chooser in this moment of rapid change is the empowered response.
Okay, staying engaged. Let's talk about that for 1 second. I was just about to let you go, and now I'm getting to another topic. Sometimes I don't want, I think a lot of I hear that word and I'm like, what does that mean? Stay engaged.
Right hand side of the page.
Okay, right.
It's just the right hand side of the page.
I was thinking you were saying like, be engaged in like the news of the world. And I think sometimes
no.
a lot of us are very overwhelmed by.
Oh no, that actually, I think, terrible. Again, move into choice.
Yeah.
Just like I consciously compartmentalize with the billing I don't like doing, the news I take in really bite-sized pieces, because otherwise it'll rob me of my life and I'll be on this crazy ride. Don't do that. Man. So I want to stay informed, but it's worth this much of my life.
This phone, and I wrote about this week. I mean, this thing is such an addiction tool, and it has made us such a slave. And I'm really trying to make an effort to spend less time on that thing, because I find that it just is sapping me of any joy in my life.
Go walk in nature. That's reorganizing, because this thing that I have right in front of me is disorganizing.
Right.
Yeah.
But yet, if there's good things about the phone, because without the phone, we wouldn't have been able to, without Substack or without, we wouldn't have been able to have this conversation and sharing it with people. So I see these things as both tools and weapons.
Agreed.
Yeah. But so not to totally diss the phone, but it is important to take a break from it every
so look,
right,
I'm gonna leave, but before I leave, I'm gonna offer something. I think I come back for a 3-peat. Look, this is the thing you and I are working on in our conversation, and I feels like there's an audience for it. So let's see if we get comments in the comments, and people actually do left hand, right hand side.
And suggest, yes, please do right hand, and suggest other topics that we can talk about, because it's certainly it seems to be a limitless supply. But I'd love to touch on the things that most people are kind of going through. Well, you can go, Freeman. I want to tell everybody listening that we are doing, because I feel bad because you actually have a life and a job.
That was hysterical. I've been dismissed. Okay, John.
What happens when you go? I don't even know what happens when you go on a live stream.
We'll see.
See. Are you going? Oh, this is going to be fun. I'm going to be alone and be like Rush Limbaugh, like a terrible person to reference, but I'm going to be like Rachel Maddow. I'll say more like Rachel Maddow. Oh, look at this. I'm alone. I'm alone on the screen. This is terrifying. I'm having stage fright right now. Okay, now I'm okay. I wanted to tell you guys that I am doing these Gen X meetups, and we're doing our next one on Sunday, the November 2nd at 10 a.m. Pacific time, 1 p.m. Eastern time. And the way it works is I'll send you a Zoom link. We all get on the Zoom and we just talk about, we shoot the shit about what's on our minds right now as Gen Xers. I think this is my way of, gathering this community, which is a fantastic community, by the way. And kind of like leveraging this community to kind of find a place for us to kind of talk about stuff that's on our mind. And I think it's sometimes, I don't know if you're like me, I've got kids that are Gen Zers, and my wife can't just talk to me all the time. And I've got friends, but it's certainly nice to sometimes just talk to people that are your age about the stuff that's on your mind. So if that's something that's interesting to you, I am going to right now in the comments type in my email address, and you guys can shoot me an email, say you want to be invited, because I just want to keep track of who's coming and how many people are coming. So here we go. That's my email address, Jonathan@rightaboutnowmedia.com, Jonathan, Jonathan, at rightaboutnowmedia.com. And let me know you want to go. I'll send you an invite. We're trying to keep it limited to a certain amount of people. Otherwise, it's just going to be insane. But these Gen X meetups are super fun. The last one, we did one, and it was really interesting. Some of the topics that came up really surprised me. What a lot of people are going through, and how similar it was to the stuff that I'm also going through. So that was cool. I'm going to sign off. I want to give myself a hand. This is the coolest thing about doing this on StreamYard, is that and not on my phone, is that I'm able to use this soundboard that I just got. So listen to some of these sound effects I got. That's the buzzer sound effect. This is my favorite one. All right, I'm 5 years old, but I like to pretend that I am hosting some sort of morning show on Z Morning Zoo, because I think we all kind of grew up with those Z Morning Zoo type shows. So anyway, thank you for joining us today, and we will be back next Friday. I've got a really cool guest next Friday. It is a guy who specializes in horror films and slasher films, and next Friday is Halloween, and he's going to come back and talk to us about his favorite movies of the 80s and tell us stories about why these movies were made and why they're so important now, and why I just feel like we had the best horror films when we were growing up. I think we had the best everything, but the horror films, we really killed it. So we're going to talk about the horror films of the 80s. and the early 90s. And so that'll be a great Halloween treat or trick. Okay. Without further ado, I'm going to say peace and goodbye.